Okay, so we have another straightforward application here that uses decisions. This is for a fake university, and I have the business rules up at the top here. So we'll say that undergraduate students are going to pay $111 per credit hour to study at our university, and graduate students will pay $222 per credit hour. Doctoral students will pay $333 per credit hour. So let's run it, and I am going to say I have an undergraduate student registering for 10 credit hours, so $1,110, which is in line with our business rules that we said. Let's do one more run of this. The other two are going to work as well. Let's say that the user enters some crazy value that is not one of the choices. So invalid choice, enter number of credit hours. I think we can finesse that a little bit. Why don't we work it out so that if they enter an invalid choice, they're not going to be asked for the credit hours. Like if they enter something invalid, it's, you know, in this case, it'll just be like game over and the application ends. It'll just be a slightly more elegant than having that credit hours pop up. I mean, ultimately, we'll look at ways to give them another chance to enter proper input or valid input, but we're not quite there yet. We'll get there when we start talking about loops. So anyway, let's take a look at this. So we have the input that the user enters for the credit, or not the credit hours, for the student type. We're reading that from the keyboard and then putting that into a stu type variable. And, you know, one thing I wanted to mention here, I haven't done this in previous videos yet, but if you have a case where, like, what if they had the caps lock key on and they entered a capital U? I mean, that should still be a valid choice, in my opinion. So what we can do, I've got a couple of ways you can handle this. This is one way. If you do a compound condition, if stu type is equal to little u, or if stu type is equal to capital U. So either one of those, either or, are going to be valid, okay? If that's the case, the rate, I'm saying rate for the tuition rate, is going to be $111, okay? Or else if, and then this is a different technique. I could do the same thing as I did here with the G and the D for that matter, but I wanted to show you kind of a slightly more sophisticated way you could do it. There's this text method called convert to lowercase. And if I just run the stu type through there, even if it's a capital G, that's going to convert it to a lowercase g. Okay, so then I only have to measure against the lowercase g there. So that's another option. The effect is the same in either of these two techniques, so you can do what you want. So if they are a graduate student, it's $222. For the doctoral student, I'm again using the convert to lowercase method, running stu type through there. If it happens to be a capital D, it's going to squash it down to a small d, and then we measure against that small d, and then the rate is $333. And then the else clause, look, if we've made it this far, they entered the wrong thing, and we're going to tell them it's an invalid choice. So one thing I want to do is, here's another technique that, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. At that point, we're asking for the credit hours, and then the tuition is going to be the rate times the credit hours. The rate that was established here when we made the decision, okay, times the credit hours that the user enters, which is in that cred hours variable. And then once I have the tuition calculated, I can just tell them to remit that amount to the cashier's office. So I had said that it would be better if they enter an invalid choice, I don't want to go through with the enter credit hours, remit the payment. If they enter an invalid choice, that's irrelevant, right? This last part is irrelevant. So what I can do is use a technique called a flag variable. And we are going to officially cover this much later in the course, but it's a quick and easy technique. A flag variable is just a quick little variable, typically a Boolean type of variable, like a true-false variable, that is going to assess a certain condition in your program, or keep track of a certain condition. And in this case, the condition is Did they enter the right thing? Are we still in business or what? So I would say, why don't I call my flag variable is valid, Okay, and if I'm in here, they entered the wrong thing, so I'm going to say is valid equals false. Okay, that's my flag variable. It's almost like a light switch. You flip it on or you flip it off, depending on the condition, okay? So is valid equals false. So now what I can do is sandwich this in an if statement. We'll say if is valid equals true, oops. Okay, and then this is a very simple little if statement, not even an else clause. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, polish it so it looks nice. Okay, there it is. So if is, oh, I forgot the then. If is valid is true, we're still in business and we're going to ask them for the credit hours, the tuition, calculate the tuition and so on. But, you know, if is valid is false, meaning the switch was flipped right here, then this is going to be skipped and we're not going to ask them anything. I mean, it's not like the application will end very abruptly, but that's okay. As I said, we'll look at ways to remedy that later.